Straight Shift with the Car Chick, the podcast that's all about cars, buying, selling, fixing, and driving, and sometimes renting fast if you're the car chick. Now, here she is.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Straight Shift. Today we're going to talk about a different way to test drive a car. Because for most people, their car shopping experience and the part of it that they tend to dread the most is when they go to a dealership just wanting to test drive the car. And if they're following my advice, which says you never buy the car the same day you test drive it, that can be very stressful because, of course, the dealers want to sell you the car the same day you test drive it. They don't want you to just drive and then walk away and then think about it for a while. They want to get you while your emotions are hot. And so that's very stressful for a lot of people. They feel like the sharks kind of descend the moment they open their door on the lot. So there's a company that recently started up based here in Charlotte, North Carolina, that has come up with a different way to have a test drive experience that takes a lot of that stress away. So I'm very pleased to have special guest Jordan. And Jordan, how do you pronounce your last name properly? Because I know I'm going to screw it up.
It's Huibers. Thank you.
Huibers. So that you in there is just completely not useful. We'll just pretend it's not there. So Jordan Huibers. Jordan has a company called Stacauto, which has created a new platform and a new methodology for test driving cars. Thanks so much for being here with me today, Jordan.
Hey, thanks, LeeAnn. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, let's just start out with the basics. Where the heck did the name Stacauto come from? And it's Stacauto. So where did you come up with that?
Yeah, no, so that is, we adapted that word from the musical term staccato. So if you've spent any time in music, a staccato note is a brief and short musical note. And that's what we wanted to do for test driving, create a brief, simple, and quick experience.
Oh, I like that. You can tell I'm not very musically inclined. I do remember what that term means, but it didn't immediately jump to my head because I'm completely tone deaf. So music and me just didn't mix growing up at all.
Well, you know, for us, I mean, when we came across it, we wanted to find something that kind of defined what we were trying to create for the customer. And you often look to the things that you enjoy. So I enjoy music, and it just happened to fall together nicely.
That's awesome. And I think that one of the things that really has made me very intrigued with your business model is it is so different. And the automotive industry throughout history has not really been known for thinking outside the box and coming up with innovative ways to change the way people buy cars. You know, when I started my company, it was a completely different business model and, kind of took everything, turned it on its head 180 degrees from the traditional car buying experience. And more recently, with the advances in the technology, the way we're going with the internet, new companies have come about and are trying to also make changes. And yours is very different. It's not trying to take the entire car buying process and change it, but merely focusing on this one, what can be very painful piece of that process for a lot of people. So tell me a little bit about how you guys came up with the concept for this company.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Staccato is we're a digital platform for booking self-serve test driving. And so what does that mean? Well, we allow customers to access vehicles on their own without interacting with the traditional salesperson experience. So we've created a zero pressure, zero contact experience, and customers can access those vehicles through our network of participating dealers. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we wanted to do. And when we looked at the landscape in automotive, we wanted to figure out a way to give customers access to those vehicles. And it kind of goes back to my experience growing up. So when I was in college, my mother-in-law asked me to help her set up test drives. She was a single mother of 3. And for her, like most parents, time was very valuable. And so She wanted to get those test drives in and didn't want to go through the sales process at each dealership just to see if she wanted that specific vehicle. And then fast forward, something you just mentioned, the evolving landscape. My sister graduated from college, and as a young tech savvy person living in Seattle, she would have been a prime candidate to go for one of those online only dealership experiences. However, she said, it's important to me to see the vehicle and experience it to make sure it's the right one I'm going to commit to for the next few years. So
Yeah, absolutely, because you can do the research online, until you're blue in the face. And there's a lot of great information out there. And, there's YouTube videos, so you can even kind of learn how some of the new technology works. But as I tell people, you've got to put your butt in the seat because comfort is in the butt of the beholder. And you have to see how the car feels to you. Is the seat comfortable? Is the layout, something that makes sense to you? Can you reach all the controls easily? So I always recommend to people you've got to physically touch, feel, sit, and drive that car to know what it's really going to be like for you driving it every day.
I couldn't agree more. Early on, my wife and I ended up with a Nissan Rogue as a company vehicle for the company I worked with at the time. The seats were phenomenally comfortable and the vehicle was good looking, with the exception of the fact I hadn't realized that the seat didn't go far enough back to fit me. And I'm 6'2", and it
Oh,
was a bit upsetting.
yeah, being able to actually fit in the vehicle is one of the most important things.
Absolutely. Yeah, so those two experiences were really the catalyst, to allow customers the opportunity to access these vehicles and experience them. And I mean, that really goes to, I guess, your number one and number two golden rules of car buying, right? Doing your homework and making sure that you can get in there and test drive the vehicles.
Right. Well, that's really interesting, and I think that it goes so well. What you were saying with the new technology, the direction that the automotive industry is going, and just the direction that I think our society is going, and of course, throw in this little thing called the global pandemic on top of that with 2020, and people are moving so much more towards touchless and contactless experiences, either whether it's for, health and safety reasons, or it's just the convenience of it and not wanting to deal with a high pressure salesperson. I have found myself, and I've gotten really, I'll tell you, the pandemic has made me so lazy. DoorDash is my new best friend. I was already on the Amazon train. So for me, now, like, I have to leave my house to go do something. I'm like, I really don't want to do it. So I think the younger generation, having grown up with these options and these technologies, that's more what they're accustomed to. And it's like, what do you mean I have to actually talk to another human being? So I think the timing of this company is also very apropos, even without the pandemic, but throw in the pandemic and, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, we're certainly fortunate. We started interviewing franchise auto dealers last year to get their input on what we saw as the next generation customer and how they'd like to experience vehicles. And part of it, you talk about the technology landscape. Part of the catalyst for the business as well is when we looked across that landscape. Some of those online only dealers have done a tremendous job of simplifying kind of the ordering process. And it certainly does skip that physical piece. And when you look at, if you take into account that customers want to experience those vehicles, you probably couldn't design a better network than the franchise auto dealer network today. I mean, when over 16,000, there's, most likely any vehicle you're looking for is probably within 25 miles of your home for you to go experience. So what we wanted to do was just remove any of those barriers that customers perceive from a pressure standpoint so that they can get in there and go see those vehicles that they want to see.
So let's talk about exactly how this process works. So walk me through step by step.
Yeah, so today we go to market in two channels. So we have our customer website, which is stacauto.com, stacauto.com, where customers can select from upwards of 1,000 vehicles. So what they do is they go on the site, we present the vehicles from our participating dealer inventory. They select a date, time, and location for their test drive, and they confirm their driver's license through our secure portal. So rather than going to a dealership and confirm your license each time you go in, you confirm it once, and we send you a secure PIN code to access the vehicle keys. When you arrive at the dealership, your vehicle is waiting in a designated Stacauto parking spot, and you access the keys that are on a lockbox attached to the sign using that PIN code. You can then
So that's very similar to how real estate agents, when they want to show a home that's for sale, they do the same thing. They've got a lockbox, they have the PIN, and they can just show up and show that house without worrying about anybody being home.
Exactly. And if you think about it, I mean, the vehicle is your second largest purchase experience, as a consumer. So why could we not take some of that technology that exists in real estate and allow customers to have that experience in automotive? So that was some of the feedback we received from our dealers is, hey, we got to figure out a way to do it securely. And so we put those pieces together, and now customers can show up, access the keys, do their test drive for up to 45 minutes, return the keys to the lockbox, and that's it.
So what if they go over that 45 minutes?
Yeah, so what we do is we give the customers reminders as they approach their time. But typically, we found from the feedback we've received that that time is enough. We are looking currently at putting on a extended test drive experience, much like you could receive if you wanted to take it home for the evening. And hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to roll that out soon.
So do you send then the customer's license and insurance information to the dealership? Because that's one of the main things that they get from you when you do a test drive, and it's a requirement of their insurance company. They don't just want your contact information. Their insurance company requires that they get that just in case, you forget to bring the car back.
Yeah, well, exactly. So what we do is for our partner dealers, we securely confirm the customer's license using a facial recognition algorithm and documentation algorithm. So we know who this customer is from their license, and we've confirmed their insurance, and we pass that information so that they can securely allow that test drive to happen. The nice thing is, one of the friction points that exists today is it gives people some anxiety when they reach out to a dealership to learn more about a car and then get a lot of emails or calls, before they even have the opportunity to go and see it. So
Oh, I've gotten on that soapbox on many a podcast, Jordan. I can't even tell you because it annoys me too.
exactly. Well, I've come to it from my own perspective of having gone through it. So what we decided to do was, that's important to customers to have that ability to go in and do that without feeling that pressure. So with Stacauto, when you make a booking, we handle all the communication with our test drive customers up to the test drive. So you will not hear from the dealer in advance. We just essentially we never call you. We just send you an email or a text message with your booking details and PIN.
So there's no pressure from anybody. It's almost like a stealth test drive.
Yeah, and I mean the theory goes back to the vehicles that manufacturers are making today are so phenomenal. I mean they're just really super interesting, and if you allow customers the opportunity to come in and experience them on their own, they'll present themselves and in a zero pressure environment, come in and see the latest Tahoe or test drive the latest Outback because they're curious and they want to see what new features are available.
And that's why it's interesting because auto shows, we every year, not this year obviously, but normally when we don't have this little pandemic thing going on, we have auto shows in the major markets around the country. And it's one of the reasons people like going to those is it gives them the opportunity to one, look at a whole bunch of different cars in one place. So if they're considering, we're looking for a midsize SUV, let's just go see what's out there. And in an hour or two, you can see everything that's out there. You don't get to drive it, obviously, but you can look at it and you can sit in it and just kind of get a feel for the vehicle without a whole lot of pressure. But those are even kind of going away in the country. We've seen fewer and fewer manufacturers participating in them. They're getting smaller and smaller every year because so much more is going online. Yet, like we discussed before, you can do all the research online you want, but you still got to get your butt in that seat and really feel what that car is going to actually be like, tactile, from an user interface standpoint. Because right now, the biggest thing with cars is the user interface, what they call the infotainment system. And that's where you can get a lot of variation in how the cars work. And they can be very complicated, especially if you haven't gotten a new car in a while and you haven't seen any of this new technology. It can be a little overwhelming. And those are also the points where you can have the most annoyance. Like you were annoyed to find that you just couldn't fit all the way into that road because the seat didn't go back far enough. For a lot of people, the way they interact with the car through that technology can be either really exciting and very easy, or it can be extremely frustrating. And you're only going to get that by getting in the car and playing with it. So I guess my question might be to you is, are we, without having that salesperson who is a product expert there to sit down with you and explain how this user interface works, because believe me, they are not all very intuitive. Do you think people are missing out on some of that knowledge and understanding how the car works? Or do you feel that the generation that's going to be using Stacauto is going to have that, they're going to be able to figure that out from their research online?
I mean, you bring up a great point. I mean, the systems inside these vehicles are not getting any less sophisticated, and so to have a product expert like someone from the dealership to answer questions for you is a huge asset. And so I would say there's probably two scenarios that that are probably pretty common today. Is one of the biggest emergent trends in reviews of vehicles is these YouTube reviewers, right? Folks who've gone in and done videos and reviews on a vehicle. And so as more and more people spend time looking at those or going to the classic Kelley Blue Books and reading the reviews on vehicle, they're getting, I would say the first layer of information on that vehicle. Then they go to the dealership and, the opportunity to test drive it is that next layer to see what they can manage, from their own, what their comfort level is. And I think that in any vehicle purchase, when you talk about that number one rule, doing your homework, a big part of that is making sure you're asking the questions, and that includes, of the dealership, of the functionality of that vehicle that you may not be familiar with, because there's probably nothing worse than purchasing a vehicle and not being able to pair your phone to the Bluetooth.
Right, exactly. Or the Bluetooth doesn't, connect, or it disconnects all the time. And yeah, so it's there's nothing to say that you can't. If you go and say you're test driving several different cars, and I tell people, narrow it down with your research to 2 or 3 cars. Try not to test drive more than 3, maybe 4, because then it gets into like trying on too many wedding dresses. They all start to look alike.
Yeah.
But if you do that homework and then you go do some of these test drives, there's nothing to say that you can't come back later and say, hey, I'd like to do a little more in-depth test drive. I encourage people to book an extended test drive. Sometimes the dealers will let you take a car overnight, or they might let you take it just for a couple hours. Driving a car for 10, 15 minutes is not going to give you the same feel as driving it for a longer period of time, especially if you've got back problems or, some sort of physical constraint. You need to make sure that sitting in that car for a longer period of time is going to be comfortable. You may need to take it home and see if it even fits in your dang garage. So that's also an opportunity to schedule a second test drive and have the opportunity then to interact with that salesperson to ask some very specific questions that may have come up during your self-serve test drive.
Yeah.
Nothing says you can't go back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that's the window that we just want to open for customers, is give them the opportunity to come in and preview a vehicle, to see if that's the right one for them. And if there's, questions, we are certainly happy when a customer walks right into that dealership and asks the questions of the dealer, or books a second follow-up test drive and comes back with a spouse or their child to see if their children's car seat fits in the back.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about, what types of vehicles you can do this for. Are dealers letting you do this just on the new cars, or can you do this on used cars as well?
Yeah, so today we have upwards of 1,000 new, used, and certified vehicles on the platform. So that's roughly 120 makes and models combined. And that price range varies from used vehicles from as low as 5,000 to upwards of new vehicles of 100,000. And that inventory is always changing. So, I mean, just earlier this week, I saw even a Porsche and a Tesla was sitting in the inventory across our dealerships. So it really does vary in terms of what you can get out there and experience.
That's great that it works for used cars as well. Now let's talk about from the dealer's perspective, because as I said earlier, car dealers are not known traditionally for thinking outside of the box. They tend to get very pigeonholed into their process. I like to compare car dealers a lot to casinos. So, casinos' job is to, suck you in and then do everything they can to keep you there so that you keep spending the money, because everything is sort of stacked in favor of the house. And even with more and more dealers finally being more and more open to internet sales, they didn't just jump on that internet bandwagon. The internet went public, back in the early 90s when I was still in college, and dealers were not the first to jump on that whole bandwagon and realize this is a whole new platform for sales. And even today, where the internet is just a bread and butter tool that we all can't live without, many of them still are focused on, okay, the web is a way for them to get leads, but then you get those 4,000 emails, one asking you, when do you want to come in? When do you want to come in? When do you want to come in? It's still about trying to get you onto their lot and going through their sales process, which can be very high pressure. And that's what people don't like. And I found, even back in 2003, when we started my company, getting the dealers to think outside of their traditional sales box just to follow our process took a lot to kind of get them over that hump, because everything they're so focused on, get the customer on the lot, get them into the test drive, then get them into the box and sell, 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 sell. So are you finding that the dealers are becoming more open-minded to this very outside the box process nowadays? Or are you running into still some of that, can't teach an old dog new tricks mentality?
Yeah, of the 16,000 franchise dealers that are within kind of our scope, that it varies widely, certainly across it. But I would say increasingly, you see more and more dealers trying to, be at the forefront of that customer experience. And so, for us, our value for dealers, we're connecting dealers with local customers, to the dealership who are seeking that zero touch experience, and we're doing that by providing dealers with these digital tools and the security to support what is a safe and simple self-serve experience. So, when you look at COVID, we certainly didn't build the business knowing that was coming down the pipeline.
So COVID's not your fault? Is that what you're saying?
We take no responsibility. But certainly that had a significant impact broadly on the automotive industry, but certainly on automotive retail and how customers experience. So where a number of dealers would never allow someone to test drive on their own. It was just against their store's policy. All of a sudden, in some states, they were mandated to do that. And we had this swing where now dealers will allow customers to test drive on their own in some of these jurisdictions, but without necessarily the security of knowing really who is taking this vehicle. And how do I know who this person is in advance? So we are able to bridge that gap for the dealership, and for the customer, they're able to come in and do that experience. And because they're verified, they don't in fact have to walk straight in, do the license copy, give them the keys, and go through what is a solo test drive, but a very traditional experience just the same.
Yeah, I kind of had to laugh with this whole pandemic situation because, one of the things that I have pushed the dealers for, because my model has always been, it was pandemic ready and has always been designed to minimize the customer's interaction and contact with the dealer. And one of the things that I push for are home deliveries, just because I don't want people sitting in the dealership for 3 freaking hours going through everything and, having to say no to 12 different useless products in the finance office. So some dealers over the years, they're like, oh yeah, no problem. We'll do a home delivery for you. They'll, bend over backwards, roll out the red carpet, do whatever they need to do to earn my business. But some of them have been very, we can't do home test drives, blah, blah, blah. And then you know what? COVID hits and it's like, oh yeah, no problem. We can do this. It was amazing. I had to laugh because I've been telling this to you people for 17 years now. And all of a sudden, because you have no other choice, it's suddenly possible. So I'm personally not letting them go back to the old way once this pandemic is over, because they've figured out it is possible. And it can even be beneficial because now you have a customer that is happier and they're going to have a more positive view of your dealership, therefore give you better reviews on your customer satisfaction index surveys and on Google reviews. And now you have a better platform for an ongoing relationship for service, et cetera, for that customer. So I'm sure you've kind of seen that just all of a sudden, whoop, 180 in their mentality of being forced into a different methodology because of the pandemic, and whether it's just safety based or it was actually mandated by their state of what they had to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And it's funny when you think about that change. You mentioned the analogy of a casino. It's funny when we looked at the auto industry. I think there's a lot of parallels to grocery, right? If you think about it as a customer, the grocery store has all the fruits and vegetables. If you want to see them, you got to go to their store. And what the grocery store has adapted, you talk about, at-home delivery. You go to a grocery store, there's a traditional checkout aisle. You can order ahead and have your groceries delivered to your car, or there's a self-checkout aisle. And that's kind of what we want to do with Stacauto, create that self-checkout aisle. It's not a replacement of all the existing dealership experience and channels. It's just an enhancement for that customer group that wants to have that customer experience.
Well, when you talk about a checkout line, can you actually purchase the car through your platform, or is this just book a test drive?
Yeah, so today we're just, you can't purchase a vehicle through the platform. we're just focused on creating that very simple test drive experience. So kind of that thesis of do one thing very well. And for us, that niche is test driving. But with that being said, we have received feedback from a number of customers who kind of want to carry through that simple zero pressure experience right through to purchase. So it's something that we're working on in the roadmap, and certainly stay tuned for 2021. We've got some great things that we got come down the pipe.
Very cool. And I have seen some dealerships, because of the pandemic, they have gone to where you can just completely buy the car online, and they finally figured out, hey, there are these online tools where we can sign legal documents, electronically. Hello, we've been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
Like I said, the dealers are a little slow to get on the bandwagon with new thoughts and new technology, but I'm starting to see it, and I think that that's going to continue to be the direction. I think we're going to see a model where dealerships are smaller and they don't have as many salespeople. Tesla started this when they immediately came out, but Elon is one of the few people that throws away the box and invents his own box and does things completely differently. But I think for the franchise dealers, this is also going to help them if they will be willing to open their minds and wrap their brains around this new concept. That's what's going to help them stay competitive with a lot of your online companies like Carvana, where everything is completely touchless and there is no dealership. Obviously, they're limited to the used car realm, but this gives franchise dealers in the new car realm an opportunity to have a similar model and to compete with that. And then with you guys coming in on the front end and allowing a no contact test drive that still lets the person put their butt in the seat, that's kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And when we think about why we decided to do it and partner with the franchise auto dealer network, one of the advantages that they have, in addition to actually physically having the vehicles in proximity to people, is that they have the ability to sell used and new. So they have a great customer continuity. Online only dealers, such as some of those larger players, they really today only have an ability to execute used vehicles. So as you grow as a consumer and your disposable income increases and you want to move to a new vehicle, you have to leave and depart those platforms. So with the franchise network, if we can give this, this low touch experience, you can start with a used vehicle customer and carry that experience right through to new.
Right. And you also open up to the certified pre-owned, because that's only available through the franchise dealers. And in many cases, I'm a big fan of the certified pre-owned programs that a lot of them have. And, your alternative, your independent used dealers don't have that capability at all. So plus, for people that have listened to my podcast, and I will get on my soapbox, one of my other big absolute no-nos is you never buy a used car without a pre-purchase inspection. And a lot of those, touchless online only sales platforms don't allow you to do that. So, with staying with the franchise dealer and kind of working the model in a little more flexible way, it still gives people the ability to say, hey, I really liked this car when I did my test drive. Can I come back and pick up that car, ask you a few more questions, and then take it to my mechanic to get that pre-purchase inspection? So, I'm much more of a fan of being able to do it that way, because there's just so many things that, you're never going to be able to find out about a used car unless you have a mechanic open that hood, look under it, and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So, all right, off my soapbox now. So what has been the initial feedback? You guys have been in the market. You came into the market, what, about a year now?
So we've been building for about a year. We just launched in Q3 of this year our pilot here in Charlotte. But initial feedback has been great. For I would say the highest and best praise is when customers explain that they're delighted to essentially see that it really is a pressure-free experience. And one of the feedback we received was we were waiting for someone to come out and speak to us. They weren't there when we got there, but then when we came back, we thought for sure they'd be waiting for us. And they just won't. I mean, the dealers really value the customer experience, and they're totally bought in on the platform. So having that ability to go in and have a completely no-touch experience has been great. And so we take that feedback, and we also take the feedback on areas where we can make the business more simple and make that customer experience even more easy. And we build those into it to make sure we're focused on putting buyers in the driver's seat.
What has been so far in your beta mode the kind of your demographic customer? Are you mostly getting the millennials, the younger generation that are very tech savvy? Or are you getting some of the older generation that may not be as tech savvy, but also doesn't want to deal with the high pressure sales situation? Like you said, like, when you were younger, moms, grandmas.
Yeah. So we definitely see young folks are comfortable with coming in and doing the booking of the app for the appointments. We also see we skew into families and moms. There's a good cohort of those that use the platform, but shockingly, we see folks kind of even at the more mature end of the age scale who are interested in new vehicles and are still very tech savvy because the platform is really just click a vehicle and click book and put your name in, and then you're off to the races. So we've tried to make it so that it's sufficiently accessible for those who want to have that type of experience.
That's good because you got to make it very easy and minimal clicking, in my opinion. Now, is it just available through your website? Is there a mobile app? How can people find Stacauto and use it?
Yeah, so the easiest way is to go to staccato.com. It's today we're a website and a mobile optimized website. But if you go to one of our dealers, on some of those dealers, we have actually a built-in widget that you can click on Staccato and book that vehicle right off their website if you happen to find it while you're there.
Okay, great. So you're giving the dealers an opportunity to, even advertise that they have that platform as well.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, for those dealers, we're fortunate. I mean, the dealers that we've partnered with are already kind of forefront in the auto retail industry, thinking about how to make a better customer experience for their buyers. And so the opportunity to put the Staccato experience, a test drive, which is traditionally a very joyous part of the test drive experience, but not one where a lot of customers have spent a lot of time booking in advance, just because the test drive experience has been very similar, for the past probably 40 years in automotive. So now with this, they're able to have a differentiated customer experience that kind of speaks to that value and customer experience they want to bring.
And I think that's a critical point because it is a differentiator. And I think that's where maybe some of the smaller franchise dealership groups are probably going to be more open to trying this as opposed to some of your big groups that own, 400, 500 dealerships across the country. Because I found they have very strict processes, but they tend to be very stuck in those processes. And even I sometimes have trouble getting them to, be a little bit flexible. Come on, work with me, people. So the smaller groups that maybe they own, 3 or 4, or even just 1 or 2 franchise stores, they're actively looking for ways to differentiate themselves from the bigger dealers that maybe, they move 400 or 500 cars a month, and these smaller franchise dealers maybe move a couple hundred cars a month. It really helps them to, steal some of that market share from their larger competitors.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And when you're a smaller store or even a single store operator, I mean, you're really passionate about the customers that come in your door. You're usually very involved in your community. You know it well, right? So this is just another way to put trust in your customers and give them that opportunity to interact with you.
And I'm going to give you a little piece of advice, Jordan, for going after some of these dealers and introducing them to this concept. And I know that you're working with Williams Subaru here in Charlotte, and I'm just going to give them a shout out, and to my good friend Sean, who's the manager over there. I think that dealerships that are run by women, no offense, guys, but I think women managers better understand some of the frustrations, especially of the female customers. They understand that discomfort with the sales process, with the pressure, with maybe not feeling like they're treated with the same level of respect by the salespeople. And so I think that, just a theory that the dealerships that have female senior management are probably going to be more open to an idea like Staccato and might be more willing to try it. So that's just my thought.
That's great feedback. We'll certainly take it.
Well, thanks so much for all the information, Jordan. One more time, where can people go to check out this self-serve test drive platform?
Yeah, so they can visit us at staccato.com. That's stacauto.com, or they can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Staccato USA.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jordan. I'm very excited about this model. Anytime I come across companies that are trying to do something very different and very customer focused. My goal for, the last 17 years has been to change the way women buy cars. And this is a critical piece of that process. So congratulations to you guys for a brilliant business idea. And I wish you all the success. And thanks for being a great guest.
Thanks, LeeAnn. You too as well.
All right, folks, drive safely out there. Until next time, we're out of here.
The Straight Shift podcast is copyright LeeAnn Shattuck, The Car Chick, 2017. All views expressed by guest and or co-hosts are those of the guest and or co-hosts, and not necessarily those of LeeAnn Shattuck or The Car Chick.